I'd like to call this hearing to order. We are formally calling this Committee on Science and Technology hearing to order. This is joint with the Committees on Energy and Finance. So for today, we'll be tackling Senate Bill 1206, or the Philippine Nuclear Liability Act. Morning to everyone. May we request our COMSEC, Ms. Tenny Chancy, to put on record our resource persons.
Good morning po, and thank you, Mr. Chair. For today's public hearing, we are joined by the following resource persons. From the Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, we have the Director, Dr. Carlo Arcilla, and Associate Scientist, Dr. Alvi Asuncion, Astronomo. From the Department of Energy, we are joined by Director Patrick Aquino from the Energy Utilization Management Bureau. From National Power Corporation, we have Mr. Dante Caraos, Department Manager. From National Transmission Corporation, or Transco, we are joined by Mr. Jomel Cristobal, Division Manager. From Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation, we have its President and CEO, Mr. Dennis Edward de la Serna. From the Energy Regulatory Commission, we have Attorney Giselle Diaz. From the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, we have Mr. Alex de Guzman, Special Investigator from Environmental Management Bureau. From the Department of Justice, we are joined by Attorney Rosario Elena Laborte Cuevas, Senior State Counsel. From the Department of Health, we are joined by Dr. Bernadette Velasco, the Director of Health Emergency Management Bureau. From the Food and Drug Authority, specifically the Center for Device Regulation, Radiation Health and Research, we have Ms. Maria Gladys Cabrera, Division Chief of the Radiation Regulation Division. From Department of Finance, we have Director Maria Carla Espinosa of the Policy Research and Liaison Office. From Government Service Insurance System, we are joined by Attorney Jovan Lynn Kikoy Marin, Legislative Liaison Officer. From the Insurance Commission, we are joined by Attorney Camille May Medina. From the Department of Budget and Management, we are joined by Attorney Tricia Baran from the Budget Information Legislative Service. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, we have Attorney Johaira Wahab Manantan, the Acting Director. From the Department of Trade and Industry, we have Ms. Janelle Aiza Manila, Division Mantilla, Division Chief of the Strategic Trade Management Office. And from Manila Electric Company, or Meralco, we are joined by Attorney Mary Ann Ballesteros, the Chief Legal Counsel for PowerGen. And just for the record, Mr. Chair, we also invited DND Office of Civil Defense, and the RRMC and DepDev, but unfortunately they are unable to send representation.
Thank you, COMSEC. So we will have DOST, PNRI to primarily give their presentation. And then we will request the other agencies to submit their position papers, or if they have other things to add. And then later on, we can have an open discussion if there are other things to discuss. So we are expecting Senator Gatchalian as well to arrive. He was a former Department of Energy chairperson as well. No? So we'll have him give his opening statement later when he arrives. So we'll give the floor to Dr. Arcilla. Kayo po bang magpe-present for DOST PNRI?
Yes, po, Senator.
Sige, go ahead.
Good morning, Senator and colleagues in government. So we're presenting the importance of this Senate Bill 1206 to modernize the Philippines' nuclear liability framework. Next slide, please. So the legislative framework for nuclear safety is first founded on the Philippine Constitution, and then the Republic Act 2067, known as the Science Act of 1958, which created the Philippine Atomic Energy Commission, And then Republic Act 5207, known as the Act providing for the licensing and regulation of atomic energy facilities and materials. And then this was reorganized under Executive Order 128 by President Aquino, reorganizing PAEC into the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute. And then recently, just last year, we have the Republic Act 12305, known as the Philippine National Nuclear Energy Safety Act, which creates the agency PhilAtom. Now we are writing the IRR, and then after the appointment of the Director General and Deputy Director General, we'll create a separate regulatory and independent regulatory. So, and then we also have the Code of PNRI regulations codified, and some of these regulations actually were used to license the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant in 1980s. Okay. They have regulatory guides and bulletins. Next slide, please. So the Philippines became a party to the Vienna Convention in 1968, and is the instrument, the basis of the Philippine Civil Liability Framework until today. Okay. The Philippines is signatory to the joint protocol relating to the application of Vienna Convention and Paris Convention, the 1997 Vienna Convention on Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage in 1998, and the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage in 1998. It's signatory, but most important here is the last one, the CSC, which will have to be ratified by the Senate. Next slide, please. Now, this proposed Senate Bill 1206, an act governing civil liability and compensation claims for nuclear damage, repealing for the purpose certain sections of Republic Act number 5207, otherwise known as the Atomic Energy Regulatory and Liability Act of 1968 as amended, and is sponsored by Senator Bam Aquino. This has been also tackled in the lower house, sponsored by Congressman, a separate bill, Marco Wangco. Next slide, please. This is the parallel bill in the House, which I think has passed the initial, I think it's in the committee stages already. So similar bill. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. The objective of the bill, to establish a robust nuclear liability regime in the Philippines that ensures clarity, fairness, and adequate compensation, and to align with modern nuclear liability principles and international standards, and to implement provisions to join the Convention on Supplementary Compensation, including mechanisms for contributing to and accessing pooled public funds. Let me explain what this is, because even if nuclear accidents are extremely rare, you know, there have only been 3 large ones. The first one is the 3 Mile Island, the Chernobyl, and then the Fukushima. The compensation to the victims of that have to be clarified, and this bill addresses that. It will also help potential operators for nuclear to keep them honest, and also to make sure that they're also funded in case an accident happens. Next slide, please. It aims to reduce multi-tiered compensation system that encompasses operator funds, Philippine government appropriated funds, and CSE joint public funds, ensuring adequate compensation for nuclear damage, and establishes a dedicated mechanism for handling claims. And it ensures that nuclear operators are strictly and exclusively liable for nuclear damage, and sets clear liability limits. So this is important because at least it sets a limit, and there will be lessons that I can explain from Fukushima why we need this. Next slide. And supports a safe and responsible development of nuclear energy in the Philippines, and affirms our commitment to upholding international best practices. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, maybe just some things on Fukushima. When the Fukushima nuclear accident happened, that plant was using some American manufactured facilities, and so some aggrieved parties went to the United States with lawsuits. And after more than 10 years of lawsuits, the court decided to go back to Japan. So that it adjudicated there. So, ang kumita, yeah, that came from you, Senator. I don't want to offend. So, yun po. But this bill will help prevent that, because the adjudication of any accidents will be in the home country. Okay, that's one. So, What are facilities that could be covered here? We have actually two facilities. The only one operational is the PRR1 research reactor. If you go to UP, yung itlog po doon, that's the original reactor that stopped operating in 1988. But then what we did is, instead of decommissioning it, we used some of the fuel to make a smaller reactor, subcritical reactor, and it is the world's first subcritical reactor powered by Triga fuel, the world's first. And it became operational 2 or 3 years ago. And the designer of that reactor is beside me, Dr. Alvi Astronomo. Designed, built, operated by Philippine scientists, by women scientists. Why do I say this? Because people say that we are not, hindi daw kaya natin ang nuclear. I beg to disagree. This is a world-recognized facility. It is safe. I invite anybody to visit this. We can tour this. This is now being used by schools, because to understand nuclear, you have to understand neutron flow. This is the only facility in the Philippines that does neutron flow. This is being licensed. Now, this is the issue. We built this, but we also licensed this. That's why the PhilAtom Act is good, because to separate the research from the regulation. Under the Philippine Energy Plan, there will be 1,200 megawatts of nuclear capacity by 2032, an additional 1,200 by some years. So these are, this will also be covered by that. No? And then transport of nuclear materials is covered. For example, we transport not just nuclear energy materials. Every day, if you are a cancer patient, there are radiopharmaceuticals. The radiopharmaceuticals are being imported now, but they have to get permits from us. Cobalt-60 to irradiate products, that's also regulated by us. So if there's an accident happening, this bill covers those. Next slide, please. There's a need for a global nuclear liability regime. Why? Because despite the very low probability of severe nuclear incidents, the potentially extreme magnitude of transboundary nuclear damage necessitated the establishment of international legal instruments on civil liability for nuclear damage in the 1960s. And then following the Fukushima Daiichi incident, efforts are focused on establishing a global nuclear liability regime. The issue here is this. In nuclear, as an energy source, nuclear has 4 million times more energy than coal, gas, 4 million times. Because it has a high energy, the potential implication in action is also higher, which means it can cross boundaries. Fortunately, in the Philippines, we are an archipelago. But what happened in, for example, in Chernobyl? Chernobyl was former Soviet Union, but it's in Ukraine. The cloud actually spread over. Now, just for the knowledge of our colleagues here, Chernobyl is not the same as typical reactors. Why do I say this po? Because unfortunately, when it happened in the 1980s, it happened when the election between the old Marcos and happened, and then natalo po si President Marcos, and then the BNPP was already finished. But then Chernobyl happened. And so there was concern na baka, so people didn't know the difference between. What's the difference between that reactor, Soviet Union, at saka yung Westinghouse? Two differences. Number one, it's a PWR reactor is much safer. 90% of all the reactors in the world are PWRs. There are 400 plus reactors that are PWR bases. Yung doon po sa Soviet Union design, it's called an RBMK. They have graphite, which is flammable. And they did something very bad. They allowed an experiment on a running nuclear plant. Hindi po allowed yan. Okay. And then the worst is the worst. The Soviet Union, at the time, I make a distinction between Soviet Union and Russia because the Russian reactors now are much safer. Wala po silang containment structure. Yung nakikita niyo pong itlog na nandoon sa PNRI, that's a containment structure. If there's an accident, the materials are supposed to be contained inside that. Sa BNPP po, may ganyan po. Doon po sa Soviet Union, wala pong ganyan. So I call it the communist design, share everything including disasters. So nung sumabog po yun, walang containment, kaya napunta yung cloud doon sa Europe. So this is then Fukushima is a different thing altogether. But there's a big difference. So you shouldn't equate Chernobyl with Bataan nuclear plant, for example. Next slide. According to the IAEA International Legal Expert Index on Liability, the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage provides a pathway to treaty relations with the goal of universal participation with all states, including Paris Convention, Vienna Convention, parties, 1988 Joint Protocol parties, and CSC Annex parties. So this is an international convention. So which means that this will have to be ratified by the Senate. Kaya po, Senator, yung CSC, we want this to be ratified already. Nandun na po, pending na po yan. But when it's ratified, then we will be compliant with this. Next slide. It's based on universal treaty relations. So it's treaty relations. So it has to be, and then addresses the concerns of all states that might be affected by a nuclear accident with a view to providing appropriate compensation for nuclear damage. And based on the CSC as the single instrument open to all states. Okay, what's the implication here? For example, pag may nag-accident, may tinatransport, yung isang bansa, wala naman silang nuclear plant, paano babayaran yon? The CSC provides for that. May contribution to a fund. Tapos yun, babayaran agad, walang litigation. Okay, sunod na, these are some of the advantages of this system. Next slide, please. Exclusive liability, no liability outside the regime or no liability for anyone else but the operator. The operators are the responsible parties here. Only the operators. Okay? And this liability without fault or absolute or strict liability, there's no need to show intent, negligence in any type of fault. The operator is liable regardless of fault, and the claimant must only prove a causal link between the incident and the damage for which compensation is sought. So, ibig sabihin, kung nagkaroon ng accident, si operator talaga yung magbabayad. Walang sinasadya o hindi, wala nang iba. Kaya kailangan din ni operator ng assurance na makakabayad po siya. And this is the way to do it. Next slide. Minimum liability amount. The installation state may limit the amount of the operator's liability but cannot go below a minimum amount. A higher amount or even unlimited liability may be imposed, and specific amount may vary from instruments. And there's also a mandatory financial coverage. The operator must maintain financial security or insurance for an amount determined by the installation state, usually corresponding to the minimum liability limit. So there is, these are the principles that will be enhanced in law. Next slide. There's also limitation of liability in time. No action can be brought against the operator after a certain period of time from a nuclear accident. 10 years, but under the revised 30 years for loss of life and personal injury. And then equal treatments of victims, non-discrimination of victims on the grounds of nationality, domicile, or residence, provided the damage is suffered within geographical scope of the applicable convention. So this is also to protect, most importantly, the victims of such. Now, interestingly, there's nothing similar to this sa ibang industries. For example, sa coal industry, sa gas, kung may sumabog na planta, walang ganitong convention that binds all the countries. Only nuclear has this. Next slide, please. Exclusive jurisdictional competence is very important. Exclusive jurisdiction of the courts of one contracting party, recognition of judgment in all contracting parties. A final judgment of the competent court is to be recognized and enforced within all contracting parties as if it were the judgment of a national court. Isa lang. Okay? So, mababawasan yung ng mga abogado. Next slide. The basis for global regime, it facilitates international trade because of legal certainty. It's channeling the liability to the operator. A treaty relations with major vendors. It enables new nuclear projects. Okay? And there will be expectation of participation by the international community, the public, industry, and investors. There is sometimes, in my job at PNRI, when you talk about nuclear, there are so many myths about nuclear. Pag sinabi niyo pong nuclear po kasi, ang nasa isip, bomba. Ganun agad eh. So, ang hirap, ganun pa lang. Ang sagot ko po dyan, ganito. Nuclear is not just energy or bombs. Nuclear means cancer treatment. You know? All of us have relatives who have cancer. The only way to diagnose early is through nuclear medicine. May facility po kami sa PNRI na ginagawa po yan to lower the cost of cancer diagnosis. There's also applications in agriculture. Meron po kaming bahay doon sa PNRI na ginawa. Bahay made of plastic strengthened by nuclear processes. Mas malakas pa yung nuclear na bricks na galing sa, ginawa po yan, yung galing sa mga sachets. We processed it with nuclear and then it's stronger than concrete. You're welcome to visit that house at PNRI. You know? Nakita po yun ng Director General. So, but then, yun nga, if we're able to handle the liability aspect, mas kampante yung mga tao na mababayaran sila, mas safe sila, especially yung operators. Next slide. It strengthens international and regional cooperation, harmonization with nuclear liability laws, and the treaty relations enables equal treatment of victims and protects neighboring countries because it channels the liability to the operator and there will be prompt and equitable compensation. This is a big lesson po in Fukushima in Japan. Ang tagal ng bayaran kasi ang daming litigation. Pag meron na ito, simple, pag may accident, sino yung victims, bayad agad. Kasi meron na ng fund na nakatayo, na pagkukunan ng pambabayad po. Next slide. It establishes the rights of coastal states. Okay? For example, especially the Philippines, kung may mga dadaan sa atin, tapos may nagkaroon ng aksidente, you know, may right pa rin yung tayo doon sa sa may-ari ng barkong yon na mayroong nuclear. Next slide. So, the way forward is to promote the Nuclear Liability Conventions, the CSC and 1997 Vienna Conventions to Philippine legislators and decision makers, which will help discuss the benefits of becoming a contracting party. The approval of the proposed bill and ratification of the international legal instrument is in support of the nuclear liability regime. So, dalawa pong steps ang gusto namin, Senator. Number one, of course, itong bill. But then ito, naka-base din po doon sa CSC, which is already in the Senate for... so, when this is done, what does this do? Alam ko na ang plano ng DOE natin at saka ng Presidente magkaroon ng nuclear power. Meron ng provision for nuclear liability. So, they will be... Kasi the nuclear plants could be owned by private parties. No private company can survive a nuclear accident. But with this, they will have some hope, at least some assurance that they will be covered in case an accident happened. And let me again reassure you, the accidents are very rare. In fact, nuclear is the safest energy source. If you total the operating number of hours divided by the number of deaths, ang pinakamaliit po ay nuclear. Kaya nga lang spectacular kasi yung mga sine, lahat may nuclear, mga kontrabida, nuclear, noon pa ng sine, palagi may nuclear aspects. So kinakabahan yung mga tao. Okay, I think that's my last slide po, Senator. So if you have questions, we'll answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Arcilia. Before we go to the other agencies now for their position papers, right now, what is stopping us from setting up nuclear energy in the Philippines? Alam kong matagal na itong pinaplano. This was clearly a goal in the first few years of this administration. Alam ko po ito, hinihintay ito, itong liability regime na ito, no? But technically, what is stopping us from setting up nuclear power in the Philippines?
Okay, thank you very much, Senator. From our perspective, number one, the PhilAtom has to be established. And we're close to that. We're writing the IRR now. In a few months, we'll have that. And the President appoints a Director General and Deputy Director General. Then you create the PhilAtom, which is an independent regulatory body. Kami po, hindi kami independent because I report to the DOST Secretary. The PhilAtom will be taken out from the DOST. We'll also take a regulatory and also the CDRR from the FDA. Sila po yung nag-regulate ng mga X-rays, MRI, tapos sila lang. So kung papatayo kayo ng nuclear plant or hospital, isa na lang. Okay? So, yun po, number one, mag-appoint ng Director General, tapusin yung IRR. So, meron ka ng regulatory. Lahat ng applications, ganito po kasi, there are only two, the function of the regulatory is to give dalawang po license for nuclear plants. License to construct and license to operate. Yung rates, yung kung ano man yun, ang bahala na po doon ay yung DOE at saka yung ERC. So, no one is stopping. I think you can apply for a nuclear license now, even at PNRI, because we, in fact, can handle the licenses. Pag natapos na si PhilAtom, i-entrega na lang yung application doon po sa PhilAtom. Okay? So that's one. Yung iba pong technical aspects, yun nga, kasi it's not easy to put up a nuclear plant. Ang pinakamagaling sa akin lang, yung nakatayo na, yung BNPP, kasi tapos na yung lahat eh. Pero kailangan pong i-license po yun. So, basically, and then there are some private companies who are interested already. Yan po.
So, okay. So, because the PhilAtom law was passed already, so technically all regulatory issues will be with PhilAtom.
For safety, security, and safeguards, yes.
Okay. And of course, DOE for operations, no?
Operations,
And price
and then
and all of
price,
that,
saka
di ba?
ERC po.
Is that correct, Director Aquino? Correct, no?
Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And this bill supports the players to come in, di ba? Because magkakaroon ng mas malinaw na regime kapag may aksidente, kapag may mga claims and liabilities, mas magiging malinaw. So, this will support the industry to come in.
Yes, sir. That plus the independent regulatory.
Okay.
So, yun.
Independent regulatory,
Meaning PhilAtom.
Yes. But PhilAtom's already passed, no?
Yes,
A matter of time na lang yan.
Opo.
Okay. But technically, you don't need this for it to start, but this law will allow for a better regime once these plants are up already.
Yes po. Kasi any private company who wants to put up a nuclear plant, once they want to be covered, and this is the law that
This will
protects
cover it.
them. Yes.
But actually, even if we don't push through with plants, the law will already cover all of the other uses of nuclear, no? Okay. So, that's clear. Right now, ilan na pong kumpanya, if I can ask DOE, si Director Aquino, ilan na pong kumpanya ang nag-apply ng lisensya para magtayo ng nuclear energy sa Pilipinas?
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, at present, as mentioned by Dr. Arcilla, several big power generation firms have already expressed interest. But they're also waiting on some developments in relation to PhilAtom, this particular bill, as well as the results of some studies that have been conducted to move ahead with their plans. But they have expressed through the Secretary Garin, that they're very much interested. They are seeing nuclear for power generation as a low-carbon option that will support our push for greater renewable energy because this is a baseload power plant after all nuclear.
Yes,
Thank you,
and
Mr. Chair.
it could replace our coal plants, no? Correct.
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And the type of nuclear plant that the companies have applied for, iba-iba rin yan, di ba? May mga maliliit, may mga mas malalaki, and also different technologies within the nuclear space. Correct, Director Aquino?
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, the companies have not yet made any applications or any documentation to the specific. What they have expressed before the Philippine government or the Department of Energy is their desire to embark on having nuclear power projects. And we do have one company, for example, Meralco, Prime, Aboitiz, that have already publicly indicated that they are exploring. In terms of the technology, as mentioned by Dr. Arcilla, the 3 S's, the safety, security, and safeguard, that will be up to PhilAtom to provide. On the part of the Department of Energy, what we have signaled through a department circular last year is that under the Philippine Energy Plan and the Philippine Nuclear Energy Program Roadmap, we are looking at having nuclear in our power generation mix beginning 2032.
Beginning 2032, because it takes about 5 years to put up a plant, no? Correct?
It depends, Mr. Chair. I think the team from PNRI will be better suited. But the conventional power plant, based on the discussions with the private, that's most likely the one that will come in if we do communities accept nuclear for power generation. Small modular reactors or SMRs, Dr. Arcilla will be in a better position to state. From the monitoring of the Department of Energy, there is non-commercially licensed that we are aware of. So it's not yet off the shelf available. But if SMRs are available, the promise of SMRs is that the turnaround time will be anywhere from 2, even as short as 2, to just as long as 5 years for deployment, Mr. Chair.
Yes. So anywhere from 2 to 5 years, no? But we know 2 is quite fast, di ba?
That's
Mabilis
correct,
yung
Mr.
2.
Chair.
Dr. Arcilla.
Thank you, Senator. Okay. This is my personal opinion.
Yes.
As a scientist and a Filipino, the fastest way for us to go nuclear is to restart the Bataan nuclear power plant. But it is immersed in politics that are beyond my pay grade. Why do I say this? Because when it was constructed, there were 3 other plants that were constructed, one in Slovenia, another one in in Brazil, and another one in South Korea. Those 3 plants have been working for 40 years, and they are being relicensed for another 20 years. We've had many visitors visit our plant, and even the Director General of the IEA. One guy from South Africa was saying, why is this plant not running? This is in a better shape than our plants that are operating. So
My understanding is that the local governments aren't too keen, no?
yes, there are local governments,
Yeah.
some church opposition. Anyway, so, but for safety, if we're talking about safety, PhilAtom will take care of that. All the rest, bahala na po. Yeah.
Yes,
Now,
but-
yung small modular reactors po, Senator. Kasi yun nga, there are 160 designs of small modular reactors, but there are only 2 operating. One is in China, the HTGR, another one is in Russia, in communist countries. But we have a research agreement with an American company to try to build one of the world's most advanced research reactors here in the Philippines. Okay? And then the President of the United States has actually signaled he wants to really accelerate nuclear because it's really needed.
On the question on acceptability of the community, no? So I think the one with Bataan, so there are questions on that technology, but I think the questions are really more on the willingness of the locals to accept it or to put it up, no? Ano po ba, Director Aquino, ano po ba yung proseso for a town? I think it's the same process for all plants, di lang naman nuclear, di ba, no? But may proseso yan, di ba? So let's say may kumpanya nais magtayo ng planta, kukuha ng mga regulatory approvals, but kasama dyan yung acceptability dun sa lugar. No? Can you walk us through the process, Director Aquino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The process is similar to others, but what's unique for nuclear is that we do need, again, we joined PNRI in stressing that we have to have the PhilAtom in place because that's the unique additional requirement for a nuclear power project. And unlike other projects, once operational, it's heavily regulated. When we say heavily regulated, PhilAtom will continue to exercise to ensure that the 3 S's, the safety, security, and safeguard, are working throughout the license period. And what's good about the measure for PhilAtom, which is already a law, is that if those are not met, PhilAtom has the power, even if it's operating, they can stop the operation. At least this has been addressed. But in terms of monitoring, Mr. Chair, the workflow is of course the same. What's unique for the Philippines, unlike other countries, is that our power sector is liberalized. Investments are primarily driven since EPIRA, the Electric Power Industry Reform Act, by the private sector. So for any power project to come in, that's government is not actively involved. Unlike in Bataan. Bataan was an actively project done by the Philippine government. So what we're envisioning, that's why Secretary Green issued the circular last year on the Pioneer Nuclear Project, is that government will handhold the nuclear power proponents. So we will guide them through the permitting process, whether it's with the Energy Regulatory Commission, whether it's in grid integration with the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, whether it's with DENR on environment, if the area has NCIP, we will go through all of those process. But in terms of the process mapping timeline, Mr. Chair, excluding the PhilAtom timelines, which is yet to be determined, we're already looking at around 2 years if the site is a pioneer. Just on the permitting, Mr. Chair, notwithstanding we have the Energy Virtual One-Stop Shop Act, which synchronizes the timelines for energy projects, and notwithstanding that there is a certification issued by the Department of Energy for the pioneer nuclear projects on the energy projects for national significance. So there's a lag time, Mr. Chair, based on our process mapping of around 2 years, all in, excluding the permitting coming from the PhilAtom, Mr.
So
Chair.
2 years for the permitting, at least 2 years to build.
No, Mr. Chair. I will leave it up to
Or
Dr.
ano na yan?
Arcilia.
Parallel in parallel.
Pwede pong parallel po kasi yan eh. In fact, the needs of the DOE and the ERC can be done. The siting kasi, the main task of that is the PhilAtom. Now, regarding stakeholders, there's one site that has a 70% acceptance rate already. Si Congressman Kumangko kasi gusto niya magpatayo dun sa Pangasinan, sa Labrador, no? Sinurvey na niya, umabot na yata ng 70%. Wala pang operator yon. Pero he has already obtained the most difficult, which is the agreement of the local populace. Ayaw lang ng ibang obispo, pero yung mga tao gusto. Thank you po.
Yeah. So, what is the process for that? Is there a public hearing? Is there umabot ba tayo ng may referendum ba yan? Or ano bang proseso para masabi na ang isang lugar they do accept that a nuclear plant will be built in their area? Sige, any of you can answer.
Okay. Yeah. The most basic requirement is that any nuclear plant will require an ECC, which is the purview of the DNR, and the ECC requires public consultation. So, requirement even for a mine. So, lahat dapat participate doon. So, yun ang isang requirement.
Okay, I'll pause muna, Dr. Arcilia. From DNR, Mr. De Guzman, can you walk us through ano ho ba yung, kunyari, hypothetically, meron na pong magtatayo na, I think Meralco said you want to engage in nuclear, no? Correct, di ba? Publicly? Yes, kunyari, Meralco is going to set up a nuclear plant in, kunyari, sa Labrador, kasi yun yung lagi nababanggit. Ano po bang proseso ng DNR to secure acceptability and approval of the community?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, for the EMB, under our mandate, in particular, yung PD 1586 po, which is the Philippine Environmental Impact Statement System, it provides therein, under our Section 4 thereof, that all entities, may it be government or a private one, shall, before it will implement its project, shall secure first an ECC with the DNR or as delegated to the EMB. So no project shall be implemented without securing it first. So like this particular project, which is classified as environmentally critical project, it undergo a review which involves the stakeholders. So it's...
Can you give me more detail? So kunyari, Mr. De Guzman, let's say, kunyari nga, Labrador or whatever area, di ba? Magdo-notice kayo ng public hearing. Is that done with the local government? Is that done, do you just post it on Facebook? How do you...
Yes po.
How do you gather the individuals na gusto po mag-participate sa isang hearing?
Actually, the proponent will submit an environmental impact study to our office, and in coordination with them, we require them to process the necessary things and tasks and requirements to comply with all the regulations like the public hearing. And through the proponent and review committee, they will ask the stakeholders through a medium like notice, hearing, and conduct activity in the area to inform them that a project will be implemented.
So it's the proponent who does that. Sila yung gumagawa. And they just give you pictures or a report, basically.
Yes, Your Honor.
Meron ba from DNR na nag-a-attend ng mga hearing? Kung merong, kunyari, merong hearing, Do you attend?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, merong at least one DENR person in all of these hearings to make sure na totoo nga yung mga hearing? Or you just accept the pictures and the reports of the
No,
proponents?
we are involved on the conduct of this study. And in fact, there is also a committee, a review committee, composed of experts. And one of those are members of the DNR.
Okay. This is really for my curiosity kasi syempre pag nuclear, I'm sure a lot of stakeholders want to be involved, di ba? Yung determination that consultation was done, paano nyo ma-determine that the community accepts this project? How do you determine that? I don't think you call for a vote, no? Hindi naman pwedeng vote, or is it if the LGU is does the LGU represent the people in that case? How do you determine that? Sige, we'll have Mr. De Guzman, then you may chime in, attorney.
I am with the technical official of our office, and in fact, he's the one who conducts this study with the proponent. So,
Pwede naman ho siya magsalita, sir.
Yes,
You
I
can get a
submit,
chair. Please get the gentleman a chair, please. Para hindi siya nasa sahig. Or you can join me here kung gusto mo, sir. Dito ka na magsalita kung gusto mo. Ayan, dyan. Sige, pwede rin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I am Engineer Carl Del Rosario of the EIA Management Division of the EMB. Just to clarify some of the requirements in terms of public participation under the Philippine EIS system. The process itself for environmentally critical projects require a full-blown EIA study. And
I'm only concerned about the public consultation.
yes, sir. So the thing with full-blown EIA, EIS studies, there is a need to have public participation at various stages of the process in terms of the permitting. So usually we have a scoping activity, which is a proponent-driven activity that requires participation from the affected LGUs. At the barangay level, we have the DNR Administrative Order 2017-15 that specifies the minimum members to be engaged in these activities. Any questions, sir? Okay. So along with this, sir, we usually, apart from the documentation as mentioned by Mr. De Guzman, we would often have participation, especially in the public hearing, as the EMB would serve as the public hearing officer for that activity. And usually, there are checks and balances in terms of the documentation, whether or not these hearings and transcripts are in order, sir.
So, kunyari, nag-consultation na kayo. May mga oppositor, may mga for and against. There are people who are for it, there are people who are against it. And again, this is not really in particular to this bill, but just in general, I'm just really curious. How do you determine kung masasabi mong tinanggap ng community na magtayo ng ganong planta or not? How would you determine that?
Approval from the local government and also.
Pwede na natin siya nag-record, sir, kung sakali. Yung parang loan na nila.
Sige, Director Aquino.
Mr. Chair, in terms of the process mapping, because we did it, what's indicated, and I think this is also partly covered by EVOS, the ECC compliance, environmental compliance certificate under DENR EMB, what's indicated is 120 days. And then our colleagues, Mr. Chair, from DENR can confirm that under the existing issuances, the presidential decrees mentioned, while it is true that an ECC can still be issued if there is, even if there is opposition, but the determination that the environmental impacts are acceptable and properly mitigated rests with the EMB, Mr. Chair. So even if there's opposition, if in the determination of the DENR EMB, it is mitigated, the project, they can issue an ECC. This is based on the DAO that we have on file for EVOS, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and what if the local government is objecting to it? Kunyari, what would be the process there?
Mr. Chair, what's going to happen based again on our process mapping is that if there's opposition on the part of the LGU can withhold the
Business
issuance
permit.
of the business permit. So hindi rin po makakapag-proceed kapag ganun po.
And are there cases where the LGU is not in favor of putting up a plant and they withhold the business permit?
We have seen cases, Mr. Chair. I think that was part of the reasons why there was a strong push on the part of the Energy Department to have EVOS in place.
What is
That-
EVOS again?
The Energy Virtual One-Stop Shop Act, Mr. Chair, that in terms of the timelines, they have to observe it strictly under the threat of penalty, Mr. Chair, and it's a one-stop repository. So our energy investors only need to log on to the system to get the permits, and agencies are legally bound to issue the permits in the timeline specified in the EVOS Act for energy projects, Mr. Chair.
Was there anything in the PhilAtom law that talked about community approval or anything like that? Wala, no? You were following the DENR EMB process pa rin?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. During the House hearings for the bill, in fact, one of the suggestions there was to try to put the LGU inside the PhilAtom bill. And the opposition there was quieted because they said this will require an ECC, which means that if there are opposition from the local stakeholders, they can use the ECC to voice out. But as mentioned by my colleague, it's not a votation.
Exactly.
Meaning that because if the DNR technical said that this is safe or whatever, they can still note the opposition, and then it can still proceed. It has also implications why for the operations. A nuclear power plant is designed to last for 80 years. And in 80 years, how many changes in local governments can happen? It cannot be held into the, into the changing attitudes of the local government. Sabi niya, pumasok yung bagong mayor, ayoko na niyan, o wala ng lisensya, paano yung? So it will be held hostage kung ganun na mangyayari po.
Exactly. There has to be some balance to it, no? And I guess this is the issues we face in governance. That on one hand, you can't be held hostage by an LGU that maybe baka humihingi ng something on the side that hino-hostage yung permit. On the other hand, if there is a plant that is indeed detrimental to the community, and that does happen, the LGU, as the representative of the people, should also have the power to act on it. No? So there's a balance that we have to have, and definitely that's not in this bill. That's also not in the PhilAtom bill, no?
There is po, sir. Because if there is really something objective that's
Objectionable.
Objectionable, the LGU or any party can raise it to the PhilAtom. PhilAtom is the one giving the license for safety.
Okay.
And it's PhilAtom who will say, you stop because of this, or justify why you can continue when you haven't addressed this.
Okay, as
That's
the regulator.
beauty- yes,
As the
yes.
regulator.
That's the beauty of the independent regulator. Hindi siya pwedeng sabihan ng secretary of whoever, uy, paandarin mo yan, may brownout tayo, hindi. Pag unsafe, hinto. Pag hindi, bakit hindi?
So a lot of our efforts is really hinged on the proper implementation of that PhilAtom law, no? Okay. Sige, I'm going to leave muna DNR. I'm going to leave this question, but it's probably not salient for today. But that's something that's, I think, worth looking at, no? Kasi nagko-consult po tayo, kunyari, yung community, di naman gusto. And then in the end, itutuloy rin natin, nag-consultation pa tayo, di ba? But alam ko mahirap po yung trabaho ninyo, but there are cases, I think, where, if different stakeholders are against something, we have to respect them. For example, for a nuclear plant to be put up in an LGU, we need to have full approval of all of the stakeholders there, considering how critical a nuclear plant can be. Diba? So, I hope we will take extra care in looking for the proper partners, no? Kung saan ho tayo magtatayo ng mga planta in the future. I know, Director, you're very cognizant of that na kailangan yung partner at the minimum yung LGU talagang willing sila and handa dito po sa pagtahak ng daan na to, no? I remember Congressman Coangco saying, I don't know if it's definitely not in this bill, but if it's in any other bill, sabi niya maybe the reward for the LGU that will house the plant is really lower energy costs. Is that possible, Director Aquino?
Mr. Chair, part of the Pioneer nuclear power project issuance is a provision that the DOE is actively studying some introduction of the benefits to host communities under the Energy Regulations 1-94. And potentially lower electricity rates to a certain extent may be extended to the host communities, whether it's on the actual nuclear power plant or even on the waste disposal, Mr. Chair.
Lower or even free for X years, no? Diba?
Maybe, Mr. Chair, with your permission, we'll take that into consideration. But it will be capped, Mr. Chair. Kasi syempre, like for Lifeline, that's something that we also want to balance, Mr. Chair.
And is that in any law, or that can be a regulation of DOE?
It can be issued, Mr. Chair, by the Department of Energy.
So that's within your powers naman, no?
Correct,
Kasi
Mr.
right
Chair.
now, lahat ng planta nagbebenta yan sa merkado.
That's correct, Mr. Chair, or through bilateral contracts. And Mr. Chair, just so that it's also put on record, in a social weather station survey commissioned by the Department of Energy for the period of May 6 to 24, 2024, we like to put on record that over 70% of Filipinos support the inclusion of nuclear energy in our power mix because they view it as a reliable electricity source. It can reduce our reliance on imported fuels, create jobs, and help fight climate change. There's also 76% of Filipinos expressing desire to learn more about nuclear energy. Not that this is the official position of the Department of Energy, but in the survey, we did also ask the possible rehabilitation of the Bataan nuclear power plant. 66% of respondents are in favor.
Well, I think
and
people are in favor because it will
it's
provide
not in-
cheaper electricity. I think that's primary. Ay, hindi mo nabanggit pero
Opo.
palagay ko yun yung pinakauna sa mga pamilyang Pilipino na meron tayong source ng mas murang kuryente.
And then just, Mr. Chair, with your permission, just one more item from the survey is that 45% also support completely new build for the power plant.
Completely new?
New,
Build.
new construction, Mr. Chair, of a new power plant.
Yeah. Okay, Attorney Mary Ann, where's raising your hand? You may give your
Mr.
comment.
Chair. No, I suppose because we're the ones who actually provide proof of the support of the community where we do build plants, I thought it would be helpful also to explain what we've experienced. So you're correct, sir, that social acceptability is actually a requirement. And the way we prove this, and it's embedded in the ECC process because it includes social acceptability. So the DNR does validate the reports. We have to document it. But I guess in terms of what is being discussed, ang sabi nga is paano pag may objection, tas papayagan nyo pa rin. Because the discussion in an ECC application really is, what is the environmental impact of the project and how will we address it? So if they have other concerns regarding the impact and we are not able to address that, then the experts, the DNR will say, actually sufficient na yun eh. Baka iba yung hinahanap ng community. In which case, that's a different, I guess, aspect of the acceptability of the project, and that's not the DNR. Then we get into discussions of LGU, local government support. The DOE actually has, as part of our requirement for some of our plants, we have to submit proof of resolutions of support of several local governments. So as you know, we have the barangay, we have the municipality, and that's the proof, Your Honor, of the acceptability of the project on other aspects. Kaya medyo magkakaiba po. So the different permits actually, in a way, encompass also this aspect of whether the community accepts it. Because in every permit, we have to consider the impact, and in considering that impact, we have to touch base with our stakeholders. Because these plants will be there for 20 years at least, and most of our employees will come from there also. So we're very much aware that our stakeholders will also be the ones who will be protecting our business in the long run. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Attorney, maybe just a few questions. You don't have to answer if these are trade secrets, no? But may public pronouncement naman kayo na that you want to go into this, no? Correct?
Yes,
How,
Mr.
how
Chair.
far are you in that process? Have you already been looking at technologies? Are you looking at sites? Or is this a general principle at this point that you want to go into nuclear?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The preparations that we have been doing is really beefing up our capability also. We are aware of the huge responsibility. This proposed bill underlines that even more, which is why we're trying to build up our capability. We have also been in discussions with other parties on what they can offer. We're trying to study the technology. We've been also attending all of the learning sessions that have been provided to us. So it's really more capability building. On citing, Mr. Chair, if I may, and this is just a personal opinion, maybe not of Meralco Power Gen, I think because nga of the political aspect of it, no, we would really defer to government on deciding on citing because
So you're not gonna. I thought usually it's the private companies that
usually
choose the site.
the owner po, the proponent, and in most jurisdictions, the owner kasi also is a government agency, not necessarily the regulator. So it's a bit, I guess, slightly different here. We're happy to work with the government on that. I think lang, sir, yun nga, yung bagahe kasi ng Bataan Nuclear and all of that, parang ang hirap for us to say. Again, sir, personal opinion. I'm sure my
So
bosses
wala
will.
pa kayong, in short, you haven't really looked at sites yet.
Not yet.
And you would welcome
Not yet.
any suggestions from government.
Not yet. But we've heard about the acceptability rate in Pangasinan also.
Sige, thank you, attorney. Yes, Director Aquino.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think it has also been made, it was asked, I think, in several public, hearings. We can confirm that the DOE that DOE as chair of the Nuclear Energy Program Interagency Committee or NEPIAC, which is a whole of government approach for nuclear energy program for the country, we've already identified several potential sites that have undergone physical inspections as well as desktop evaluations that are potentially suitable for hosting a nuclear power project. Offhand, I can confirm that several locations in Bataan, including the existing facility where the BNPP is situated, remain suitable for a nuclear power plant site, as well as the sites in Labrador, Pangasinan that was mentioned by Dr. Arcilia, and there are also other sites located in Camarines Norte. There are sites also in Palawan, Puerto Princesa in particular, as well as Masbate, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let me ask our agencies here. Sige po, Director Arcilia, quickly.
Yeah, okay. I'm a geologist. There are geological constraints it's not for disallowing nuclear plants. Number one, in the Philippines, you cannot build a nuclear plant close to an active volcano, which means hindi ka talaga pwede magpagawa ng nuclear plant sa Batangas kasi because of Taal. Okay? Doon din sa Albay because of Mayon. So, yung pa lang, di ka makakapag first base. And second, you cannot be on top of an active fault. Ibig sabihin, kung nasa tabi ka ng fault, pwede ka mag-engineer. Pero pag nandun ka mismo sa trace ng fault, hindi pwede. So, pag hindi mo na-click yon, eliminate. Kaya nga maganda yung Palawan kasi wala doon ng vulkan, walang fault. No? Pero for the fact, hindi po totoo ng Bataan Nuclear Plant ay may active volcano, yung Mount Native. Patay na po yung volcano yan. We just had brand new studies. We put seismic sounding around it. Wala nang... Kasi po ganito yan eh. Paano mo alam kung buhay pang vulkan? Parang may stethoscope ka, lalagay mo doon, seismic. Kasi kung may gumagalaw pa sa ilalim na magmas, ibig sabihin, potentially, wala po. We've done that for more than 1 year. So, hindi active ang Mount Native. Pangalawa, wala ding fault. Kasi sinuri na ng maayos. Those are the two biggest egregious fake news about Bataan Nuclear Plant. Sabi daw, may fault at saka may volcano. Not true. Yun po. Ang hindi pwede rin isa, sa aking palagay, hindi ka pwede kung may liquefaction or started liquefaction. Sa reclaimed areas, hindi ka pwede magtayo ng nuclear plant. Kung saan may baha, kung saan may flooding projects, whether true or ghost, hindi din pwede magkaroon. Yun po. Thank you.
Parang palit ng palit yung areas na pwedeng magtayo ng planta. Okay, let me quickly ask, I think DOE, you're in favor, no? You've spoken already. Maybe we'll ask DNR, DOJ, and yeah, maybe just DNR and DOJ to give their position.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, as to the issue raised earlier here, with respect to the implementation of our mandate, the question of how we approve the or address the social acceptability of the project is that the proponent shall undergo the scoping process. And the proponent in particular conduct meetings, conduct information and education regarding the impact of the project, the negative or the positive ones, secure the attendance of the people in the area, and address their concerns as to social or economic. And if all these requirements are met and satisfactory as to the review committee, the EMB will approve the ECC application. And the issue on whether it requires the certification from LGUs is not necessary, as the mandate revolves only as to the impact management. So we focus on the environmental management, but as to the requirements of social acceptability, we only require those mentioned things that is to be done by the proponent of the
Okay,
project.
Director, with regard to the law, does the ANR have a position with regard to the bill at hand?
Yes, Your Honor.
You don't have to read the whole position, you can just summarize na lang.
Actually, since the mandate of the EMB is to implement the impact system as well as the pollution laws, like the RA 6969, the Toxic and Management Act, the RA 9275, the Clean Water Act, and 8749, the Clean Air Act, and the Information Education Act. As to the provision with respect to the liability, we have no, we support the law. However, Your Honor, with respect to the related Senate Bill number 2899, the Philippine National Nuclear Energy Safety Act, in consideration of Section 41 of House Bill number 375, which is similar to SB 1206, which states repealability sa repealing clause po under Section 41. It states that all acts, executive orders, administrative orders, proclamations, rules and regulations inconsistent with any provisions of this act, including Section 37 to 63 of Part 7, liability for nuclear damage, under Republic Act number 5207 and Section 50 of RA number, ito po yung PhilAtom Act, are repealed or modified accordingly. So we would like to reiterate our previous comments issued in reference on this provision of the bill, because under our previous comments on the delineation of jurisdiction, which is the Section 6 of the proposed bill, provides that regulatory functions of all other government agencies with jurisdiction functions and authorities with respect to nuclear energy and radiation sources shall be transferred to Philatom. As provided under Article 3, Section 14 of the draft bill, the following facilities and activities are prohibited if without an authorization issued by Philatom. And then our comments on that is that according to Sections 32 to 36 of DNR, Admin Order Number 1992-29, IRR of RA number 6969, provides for the roles of DNR and the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute. As provided therein, such agencies have the right to monitor and inspect the shipment of nuclear waste for the protection of the public and national interest. Reporting and notification are also required to be made by any individual of any existence of unauthorized radioactive material of nuclear waste anywhere in the Philippines. Doon po kasi sa bill na yun, Your Honor, it transfer the jurisdiction under Section 6 of the proposed bill, which should not involve the transfer of environmental laws as above stated po. And,
You're referring to the Philatom law, no?
yes, Mr. Chair.
Not this one.
Which is similar and related thereto.
It's a little different, medyo iba siya, but maybe we can ask Dr. Arcilia to comment. Natanggalan ba ang DNR ng responsibility for... Hindi naman, di
Hindi
ba?
po. Actually, according to our agreements now, working agreements, if we're dealing with toxic or hazardous waste, that's the purview of the DNR. But if we're dealing with radioactive nuclear materials, that's a purview of PNRI. And that as actually po, Senator, that has been applied to a current situation now. There is a cesium-137 contamination issue that we are helping to manage now. So PNRI does not want to deal with environmental aspects that are not central to its expertise. So, and in fact, it was the coordination with DNR na ilipat sa amin kasi kaming may alam doon sa nuclear. Wala naman kaming alam doon sa environment. Mas maganda yung hatian po. Okay. And that's a different bill. The Philatom bill is quite very different from this liability.
And the Philatom bill is a law already, right?
Yes, it's already law.
Oh, so I think, sir, you're pertaining to the Philatom law, which is already a law, no? But with regard to the bill, is there anything in the bill that may concerns po ang DENR?
Wala na
Kung
po.
wala po, or you can of course submit later on. No? It's not a problem.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. De Guzman. DOJ, since we're talking about liabilities here, any concerns? And si DOH rin pala, tatanungin ko. No?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. As for the Department of Justice, at the outset, we express our strong support for the passage of the proposed measure as it seeks to update and align the country's law on nuclear liability, which is currently a 1968 law, with modern principles and prevailing international standards. The establishment of a modern and comprehensive legal framework on nuclear liability will further demonstrate the country's adherence to its commitments under relevant conventions and reinforce domestic safeguards. We interpose no constitutional or legal objection in the passage of the bill, and we likewise acknowledge and commend its intent to strengthen the country's nuclear liability regime. However, we submit several comments on several sections of the bill. We will just submit our position paper, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. DOH?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So let me just read briefly our technical paper or position for the Senate Bill number 1206. The Department of Health supports the intent of the Senate Bill number 1206. The proposed measure seeks to ensure adherence to established rules and regulation by appropriate national authorities in alignment with the international standards, including those set by the International Atomic Energy Agency, particularly on the safety, security, and liability regimes governing the use of radioactive and nuclear materials. As we are pursuing the utilization of nuclear energy as an alternative power source through the DOE, which targets the establishment of a working nuclear facility by 2032. In this context, it is imperative that enabling legislation be enacted to support the safe, secure, and responsible deployment of nuclear power. Such legislation must provide a comprehensive legal framework for civil liability and compensation for nuclear damage, regardless of cost, to protect the public and also the state. Through this bill, the government is afforded to the necessary legal mechanism to ensure that potential or prospective nuclear facility operators are financially capable of undertaking nuclear operations, providing adequate compensation to individuals affected by nuclear incidents, and responding effectively to nuclear emergencies. The proposed measure also strengthens the regulatory oversight by ensuring the safety and security measures for workers, facilities, and nuclear materials are in place, and that the credibility and accountability of operators within the nuclear industry are also upheld. Further, the bill empowers the government through appropriate national authorities such as the PhilAtom to prescribe, assess, and evaluate compensation mechanism provided by the operators. It is likewise established clear criteria governing the use of public funds in the event of any nuclear damage and the corresponding reimbursement procedure, thereby safeguarding public resources while ensuring prompt and equitable compensation for affected parties. We will also be submitting our official position paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'd like to request all of the agencies, if they have a position paper, especially if there are comments, objections, or any changes, to just submit it to the committee. We'll try to accommodate and to go over all of these comments and suggestions. As a final question for today, my phone-in question si Senator Win. He can't make it anymore, no? Ang tanong niya, who will determine the location of the disposal of the waste? And what are the, I guess, ano po yung mga rules regarding waste disposal? Dr. Arcilla.
Thank you, Senator. So there will be another law for waste disposal, but parts of that is already covered by PhilAtom. Okay, but the general principles of nuclear waste disposal is called geologic disposal because nuclear waste will last for 10,000 years. So you isolate it from human activity for 10,000 years. How do you do that? Several ways. One, you have a repository that's at least 500 meters deep. Fortunately for the Philippines, you have technology kasi our geothermal drilling already reaches 3 kilometers. If you ask me, and that's my expertise in nuclear, get an isolated island, drill deep holes, put the waste, plug it with bentonite, and it's as safe. I'm willing to live in that island. So there's technology for nuclear waste. Thank you po.
Basically anywhere, di ba? Is
Yeah,
there a rule, kunyari, let's say Meralco has a plant in Labrador, is there a rule where this waste can be placed? Or
right. There are rules. In a nuclear power plant, the waste after operation is still hot, so it's placed beside a plant in water if it's a PWR. But then after some time, they can be put in casks while the repository isn't active yet. In the world right now, there's only one repository being constructed in Finland. But America has a waste disposal for military wastes. So we have the technology, but a law has to be made because the government has to put up the repository site. But then there's a bill, and every nuclear power plant will be required to have a fund for decommissioning and nuclear waste disposal. So, isabihin, pag mag-ooperate sila, a certain amount of the money is set aside, maiipon yon within the 80 years, and that will be used to fund the waste disposal. In America, since they have 94 plants, yung fund po niyan, napakalaking pera.
And ano siya, no? It's not on site of the nuclear plant.
Not on
it
site.
Cannot be.
Not on site.
Hindi pwede.
It has to be it will have its own restriction. That's why a law will be needed for that. No, yun po.
Okay, so that's one more law that needs to
Yes,
that
after
needs to
this,
get
the
done.
incentive, but that one has to be done after the liability. Yeah.
And we cannot include those provisions in this law. Kailangan iba siya, no?
Iba po kasi eh. Mas maganda
iba yung
hiwalay po.
subject matter.
Oh.
So that's nuclear waste disposal law.
Yes. Okay. And that will happen once this is passed. Meron pa tayong incentives siguro na law na gagawin.
By the way, Dr. Arcilla, if a plant is operational, how often does it produce waste? May ano ba yan?
Okay,
Years
ganito
ba
po
yan?
yan.
Or
If it's a PWR reactor, the fuel will last for 18 months. Tapos itatabi po yan doon sa kanyang fuel storage, no? So on-site yan, okay? So, and that can stay there. In the US, all of the 94 plants is on-site. And then after some time, pag hindi na masyado mainit, ilalagay sa casks. Ang liit lang po kasi niyan eh. Just to give an idea, one, smaller than my thumbnail, one is worth 3 tons of coal. Yung fuel po ng BNPP, kakasya sa isang malaking jeep. That will last for 18 months. In contrast, kung coal plant po yan for 18 months, ang kailangan mong coal, 50 barko na 50,000 tons.
okay, another question. Ano na rin ho siguro to, parang
Okay.
101, no? Nuclear
Opo.
Energy 101.
Okay lang po.
Where do we purchase the uranium?
Okay, ganyan
Do we
po.
have uranium in the Philippines?
We have uranium in the Philippines, pero hindi po masyadong marami. Meron tayo sa Camarines Norte. We're exploring that. Pero kasi the concentration is very small. Mas murang bilhin. Ito ang hindi nalalaman ng maraming tao. Uranium is more abundant on Earth than coal. Yes.
Okay.
And then who are the biggest producer of uranium? Kazakhstan, Canada, Australia, the US. So which means that, at tapos ang presyo po ng uranium ay stable. Kahit na kung ano, ganyan lang, no? Hindi kagaya ng presyo. So, kaya nga mura, yun nga po ang, okay, ganito, another po, gusto kong BNPP example. Magkano ba yung fuel ng BNPP? $30 million for that, $30 million kakasya na yon for 18 months. Magkano yung importation ng coal for the same 18 months ng 620 mag? Yung 50 Panamax ships, $800 million. 800 versus 30 million. Kailangan bang i-memorize yan?
Okay, I think you're preaching to the choir here, Dr. Arcilia, di ba? Sige po, we'll give the last. Meron po bang nais pa magsalita? Anyone? Kung wala na po, we'll give Director Aquino the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to also to put on record, but we've submitted this, and just to echo what was earlier mentioned at the start, we observed that certain provisions on the protocol to amend the Vienna Convention on Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage, or the 1997 Vienna Convention, and the Convention on Supplementary Compensation, or CSC, for nuclear damage was reflected in this particular bill. Parenthetically, both those issuances were adopted in September 12, 1997, entered into force on October 4, 2003, while the other one, the CSC, entered into force on April 15, 2015. By definition, under Executive Order 459, treaties are international agreements entered into by the Philippines which require legislative concurrence after executive ratifications. This term includes compacts like conventions. Hence, it is settled that while the Philippines became a signatory to both conventions on March 10, 1998, for the 1997 Vienna Convention and CSC, to be considered entered into force in the country, we have to ratify it. And we note that the instruments of ratifications have been transmitted and pending before the Senate even during the 19th Congress, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
and Director Aquino, that goes through the Committee on Foreign Affairs. So that doesn't go to separate committees based on subject matter. All of these go through the Committee on Foreign Affairs. No? So yes, when it gets there, we will vote, but it's not up to this committee to bring it to the plenary. No, I think you know that also, right? Pinapalala mo lang sa aming lahat, no? Okay, sige. So we'd like to thank everyone. We will suspend the hearing, and hopefully with your comments we can come out with this bill. No? Maraming salamat. Thank you.